Here we go. That's it. Thank you. Okay. There we go. All right, now start again. Okay. Recording this. As I mentioned, we started learning the second about the year 2000, and we've been learning over 20 years, every single Shabbos, just a little bit, because we didn't have a lot of time. But you know what happens? Even if you have only a little bit of time, each time you learn a little bit, it keeps increasing, and ultimately you end up finishing everything. They tell over that the Mishnayos, the 6 orders of the Seder Mishnayos, spell Zman Nokat, Zroim, Moed, Noshin, Nezikim, Kodshim, and Taharos, spell together. The acronym spells Zman Nokat, which means choose the time, take the time. As long as you take the time and you learn 1 Mishnah a day, 2 Mishnayos a day, like we are between Mincha and Ma'ariv, ultimately in 10 years you're going to finish Shas, and you're going to know all the Mishnayos and Shas. And when you have a Gemara like Shabbos and you learn 15, 20 minutes, sometimes a half an hour, like today, we had a half an hour between Shalosh Shudas and Ma'ariv. We started Sukkah just a few weeks ago. We went through a good part today. So when you learn a little bit every day, just a little bit, ultimately you finish a whole Mesechta. Mesechta like Shabbos, 157 block. When you started, you're on Daf Beis, and you think to yourself, oh my goodness, we're never going to get there. But sure enough, we got there. And we did it each week just a little bit. And today, we're at the final few lines of Mesechta Shabbos, and we're going to make the Hadran and make a SIYUM. Now, the truth of the matter is, there's a lot to say about the entire Mesechta Shabbos. We don't have time tonight to spend a tremendous amount of time on the SIYUM, but we are going to offer some interesting insights from Mesechta Shabbos itself. Usually, you tie the beginning and the end together. I'm going to make one mention of that, but I'm going to focus on something else entirely. Let's go to the very last part of the Gemara on Daf Kuf Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Just one little few lines, and then we're going to discuss a little bit more about that. So, on the bottom of Kuf Nun Zayin Amud Beis, if you'll take a look, there are 2 dots about 5 lines up. 6 lines up, it quotes the Mishnah. The last Mishnah said that Umidivreim Lamadnu, from what Chazal did, the whole story about closing up an area so that Tumah doesn't go through and make a whole bunch of houses Tameh, but from what they did by closing it up and measuring whether there was a tefach opening in order that the Tumah should get out, Lamadnu shepokakin, you can stuff up Tumah, umodadin, you can measure on Shabbos. Like, for instance, using a thermometer to measure someone's temperature. Of course, you don't just do it, out of the clear blue, but if someone is even a chola she'ein bo sakana, but there's a question of whether or not the temperature should be taken, you're allowed to use a thermometer to measure the temperature. Koshin b'Shabbos, and you could tie knots of a non-permanent nature on Shabbos for the sake, and all these things only for the sake of a mitzvah. When it comes to a mitzvah, like let's say a mikveh, you have to know if the mikveh is 40 saw, so you have to measure Amma al Amma, an Amma wide, an Amma long, Bedum Gimel Amas, 3 Amas high. So you can measure it to see if it's a kosher mikveh, because it's a mitzvah, and you can measure for the sake of a mitzvah on Shabbos. The Gemara tells us a story. Ula came to the house of the Reish Gelusa, the head exilarch, like Chazia Rabba bar Avuna, and he saw the great rabbi Rabba bar Avuna, the Yosef Avna Demaya, and he's sitting in a tub of water on Shabbos. You can't take a bath on Shabbos, we know. Obviously, Rav Huna was permitted because of one reason or another. Maybe he was a chola a little bit, and he was allowed to, or it was hot, and it was a danger. He was cooling off, but he was sitting in a tub on Shabbos, right? When he was sitting in this water, the Kamashach lay, and he was measuring the tub. He was measuring the tub on Shabbos. Amalei. So Ula said to Rabba bar Avuna, he said, Amar the Amar Rabbanan medida de mitzvah. The Rabbanan permitted a measurement that is mitzvah on Shabbos. The lav mitzvah mi Amor. Did they say you can do a measurement that's not a mitzvah on Shabbos? Amalei, he answered and said, I'm just busy with something. And all the Mefarshim speak about this. They want to know, what do you mean? What was he busy with? And the Ben Yehoyada comes along and says, every Jew, especially Rabbi Bar Huna, he was someone who sat and learned day and night. Every second he had, and he didn't want to waste a minute. But he can't learn, but you shouldn't sit idle. He didn't want to sit idle in the tub. So he wanted to keep busy with something that would be worthwhile, maybe measuring and figuring out how many gallons of water was, how much it was, just to use your head. So it shouldn't be a waste of time. He was busy with something in order to keep himself busy and not let his mind go fallow. And that's why we say about the Vilna Gaon that when he had to go to the privy, he was writing math books, which ultimately in some universities they still use. So we're talking here about someone not wasting a moment's time. Okay, the last story right before this was, as I said, the story about making sure that there wasn't tumah that would spread out throughout the neighborhood. And our Chazal have told us that that's the beginning of Mesechta Shabbos too. Because the beginning of Mesechta Shabbos was, there was an ani on the outside and a person on the inside giving him food. And there's a question of transferring food from the inside to the outside. If you did the complete malacha of picking something up and putting something down, right? Haba and hanacha. If you picked it up and put it down, so you chayav on the mitzvah of carrying. But why wasn't the ani inside the house? Why didn't he invite him in the house? Why was the ani standing outside? So you had to give it to him. It should have been that Jewish people invite someone in for Shabbos. So at the beginning of Mesechta Shabbos, we didn't know how much we could and how much we couldn't do, and there was a separation of our chevra. There was a little bit lack of chevra shaft. Something was missing. Well, by the end of Shabbos, Mesechta, we're so careful about tumah. Maybe we can save that person from becoming tummy. Maybe we can save this person from becoming tummy. And we measured it to see whether or not the covering was good enough to stop the tumah, and so Klal Yisrael will be able to come together. So it started where there wasn't so much friendship, and it ended off where there was friendship. Interestingly enough, in Mesechta Nedarim that we learned just Friday, there's a series over here on Daf Yud Zayin, if you'll take a look at it when you have a chance, that the Ran brings down. There's a girsa in the Gemara that's missing. There are some lines in the Gemara that are missing, says the Ran, and that the Rashba and others have this girsa. That means they have that syntax, that language. That means there was some who knew this language of the Gemara and some who didn't know. And it's interesting, our edition of the Gemara does not have these lines. Why do I bring that up? Let me tell you why. You have your Gemara in front of you. If you could take a look at Mesechta Shabbos, Daf, Kuf, Yud, bottom line, the bottom line of Kuf Yud Beis, the bottom line, right in the middle of the line, on Kuf Yud Chesam Beis. Let's read it together. In the middle of the line, the Omar Abaya. Abaya says on the bottom line, Te Li, grant me credit, grant me a mitzvah. Because when I see a group of rabbis or students of the rabbis, the shlim mesechta, that they finish a mesechta, top of the next daf, avidna yoma tava l'rabbanon. I make a yontif for the rabbis. If I see, okay, well, I ask everybody always to do that, and now I'll do it. Okay, great. All right, so every time I see a group of rabbis or students learning and they finish a Mesechta, I make a party, a big party for everybody. We are here today for a SIYUM. A SIYUM's source is that line right there. That's the source for making a party when you have a SIYUM. Right here in the Gemara, in Mesechta Shabbos. I've often pointed out, and please focus on this and remember this, it's so crucial. The word SIYUM is made up of 4 letters. Samach, Yud, Vav, and Mem. 4 letters. If you take the letter Samach, and you take the beginning of the letter and the end of the letter, you'll see they're equal. What do I mean? How do you spell Samach? Samach, Mem, Chav. How much is a Samach? 60. How much is a Mem? 40. A Chav? 40 and 20? 60. A Samach is 60. The first letter to the end. Next, Yud. How do you spell Yud? Yud, Vav, Dalid. How much? 10. Vav, Dalid, 6 and 4, 10. The beginning of the letter and the end of the letter is equal. Vav is a Vav and a Vav equal to each other. Right? Mem is Mem, equal to each other. What is it telling us? It's telling us if you learn the end of the Mesechta, if you learn the last lines of a Mesechta, the end is equal to the beginning. Wait a minute. It's not exactly equal. It's ke'ilu. It's as if it's equal. I don't want people walking around and saying, I don't got to learn any Mesechta. All I got to do is come for the last line, and that's the end of that. It's not like that. It's ke'ilu. It's as if you participate in the SIYUM, it's as if you're participating in the entire Mesechta, and you're getting the reward of the learning of all Mesechta. That's why Abaya made a party for the Rabbanon when there was a SIYUM Mesechta. Now, the question is raised like this. If we saw in the Durham that there's a few lines missing in the Mesechta, so what happens if we learn the Durham and we don't say those lines? Can we make a SIYUM? How can I make a SIYUM? Yeah. I'm missing some lines. I can only make a SIYUM when I have all the lines there. But if the lines aren't all there, I can't possibly make a SIYUM. It's impossible. I'm leaving out some lines. But let's go back. When Abaya said, when I finish a Mesechta and I see a bunch of rabbis finishing a Mesechta, I make a party for them. Which rabbis was Abaya talking about? Which rabbis was Abaya referring to? The Rabbanim in the yeshivas where they didn't have the Gemara. Because Abaya was in the writing of the Gemara. Abaya and Rava, Rabin and Ravashi were in the Gemara. They didn't write the Gemara yet. They didn't have it. So what did they learn? They learned Mishnayos. And they didn't have all the lines of the Gemara. And even though they didn't have all the lines of the Gemara, what were they able to do? They were able to make a SIYUM. Therefore, says the Kosher Glover in the Pri-Eitz Chaim in the SHABBOS and Shuvas, and I'm happy I'm quoting that. I want to tell you why I'm happy I'm quoting it, because the Kosher Glover, Hashem Yom Kom, was also killed in Meidanek. And he was also part of those that started with Kristallnacht. And today, when we think about that, it was just this last week, when Klal Yisrael, maybe he didn't exist, but his Torah is with us right here in this room right now. Because he said that word, that if they were learning Mishnayos and they finished the Mesechta and they were able to make a SIYUM, we are also able to make a SIYUM. We are part of the eternal Klal Yisrael. No matter what you do, the thing that binds us all together is the Torah. And it's interesting to note that if you take a look at the halacha, you look in Siman Reish Mem Vav in Yoreh Deah. I want to read you something that's crucial for every one of us to know from the Ramah. The Ramah says as follows: Mesayim Mesechta mitzvah lismoach v'laso seuda v'nipei seudas mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to make a seuda, and that seuda, that meal, is a seudas mitzvah. And the shach and the Pischei Tshuva say the following: V'kosu v'sov tshuvas maram mintz. In the end of the tshuva, the maram mintz, it says, V'kesheboin l'sof mesechta yishayir ma'at b'sof. Leave a little bit at the end. Ad shasa kosher. Deroy laso l'takin bo seuda. And afilu ovel toch yud beis chodesh al oviv alimo. Even someone who ovel or a parent, this time it shouldn't happen. But everyone deals with the reality. Even such a situation, yochol lisod sham, is allowed to go to that seuda. It's such a powerful simcha that even though Ovel is enjoined from not going to any Sudas Merayim, when it comes to finishing Mesechta, all bets are off. It's such a tremendous simcha for Klal Yisrael. This is a real, unbelievable simcha. Over 20 years, learning a little bit each week, and there are many in this room right now who participated a little bit here, a little bit there. Some were there straight from the beginning through to the end. I don't have to mention names. We know who they are. They're here every single week. They're learning every week. and they finish Mesechta Shabbos. And the guys who are here only for a little bit, so you got a little bit. You learned a little bit, and when you learn a little bit, you learn a lot, because the beginning is equal to the end, and that's the SIYUM Mesechta, and that's the seal of Mesechta Shabbos too. The beginning and the end are all tied together, and we are here for this tremendous simcha today. And everyone should realize what a great joy it is to attend. And I urge and encourage you, even if you learn only a little bit each day, even if you only grab a little bit of a higis of a yom v'layla, even if you learn a little bit each day, I tell you, this is the future of Klal Yisrael. This is the future of the world, because it's standing on our shoulders. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam amei, al Torah. When we know where that comes from, it comes from the first, the Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. Before we go any further, I want to give a big yashikach to all of the youngest Beth-El Boro Park for helping put together this beautiful simcha. I want to give a yashikach to those who really got involved in it, who want to remain nameless, but it's Mesechta Nishmas, and we have all the names printed on the website, Fuah Shlema, for Esther Bas Chaya Rivka and all the others who are participating in this. And we ask everyone to consider getting involved. Daf Yomi a little bit, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, Mishnayos and Halacha every single day. It's amazing what you can cover. And hold on to your seats, because we're getting very close to the end of the Mesechta Nida, and we are about to finish all of Shas and Mishnayos. Took 10 years, but we're almost there. We're getting there. So we're going to have another beautiful simcha coming up. But in the Yetz Hashem, everyone should participate and learn Torah. Learn Torah. It's the life of the Jewish people. It's what makes us who we are. It's who we are. It's what we are and what we're going to be in the future too. Okay. We say, hey, you know, the Oivak Pak name it's a second to the own he be son of the Hook on the man of Bosch. Lolam Loesh have people that keep on he son. Godukata Donoi, Lamdeni Hukecha, Amen, 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 Selavoy. One of the most beautiful brachas in the world, yes, in Hashem, to make pleasant and sweet the words of the Torah in our mouths, not only for us, but for our children, our children's children, and for all the children of all Klal Yisrael, that we should know and understand. Reishis Chokmah Yiras Hashem. The beginning of all wisdom is fear of Hashem and the study of the Torah. Modem anachnu v'necha Adonai Eloheinu Yavseinu. Shesamta Chakein Yotze V'Sem V'Gosam Chakein V'Sem V'Tnanos. She'ana Mashkim V'Hei Mashkim V'Hei Mashkim V'Divar V'Teil. Ana Amil V'Hei Amil. Ana Amil Kam Socha V'Hei Amil V'Inam Kam Socha. Ana Rotzim V'Hei Rotzim. Ana Rotzim V'Chai Hamavor V'Hei Rotzim V'Hei Shachas. Shenemar V'Atol V'Hem Tovidim V'Hei Shachas. Ansei Dom V'Hem V'Yitzi Yidei V'Aniyev Tachor. Yiyotzon V'Necha Adonai Elohai Kishen Sheta'azenu. The SIYUM, the Mesechta Shabbos, came to Azreinu. We should all be helped. The Hasnu, the Mesechta Susfana Lachedim, will assign them Lilmo to Lami, Lishma, the Lasas of the time as cultivate some of the Sechabiaba, was just Kolatana, the Amor of the Talmid Hachamim, Yamor Lonu, Zarenu, Shilotoma, Shatoda, Mipinu, Mipi Zera, Zarenu, Zera, Zarenu, oh love. This is Kayin Bonu, the Hasalecha, Tan Kutsov, Bishop of Sishman Alecha. Bekitzose hieß es sich Recha, ki vi yeguye Recha, v'simol chosh nasayim, olechem v'mina, v'simol chosh v'chavod, Adonai Oz v'amo yitain, Adonai v'alech v'zamol v'shalom. Hashem gives power to the Jewish people. Amazing how much power we have. Yiskadal, Yiskadal, Shnei Davor. Enjoy the sugar. Thanks for coming.
Years, huh?
We started sukkah in the sukkahs in Chalamoid sukkah. Chalamoid sukkah, son. That's when we finished Shabbos. We started sukkah in the sukkah, and we're already halfway down.
Hey, Rabbi Snow.
Yeah,
Don't forget to Mazel Tov. Don't forget to sign off when you finish, so I can process it.
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. I'll sign off. Okay, Mazel Tov.